So hello everyone. Thank you for being here today. I am really excited to bring together two amazing leaders in the community for starting at square one in collaboration with the Bossa Foundation and Venture Cafe. The Venture Cafe team has been amazing and we are grateful for all of their support with the program logistics and promotion. Every month we'll be bringing you some amazing leaders and today is no exception, as I mentioned. My name is Gabriela Ramirez-Arellano, and I'm thrilled to lead the Center for Emerging Technologies. It's the largest and the oldest innovation center in Missouri. I'm also the Director of Entrepreneurship, and I volunteer at the Bossa Foundation. A small business owner myself, which is why I was speaking to experience about that business plan. But just a little bit about the Center for Emerging Technologies. For those of you that do not know, we are nationally recognized for providing infrastructure and the types of resources that early stage businesses need through our signature programs like Square One Ignite and Bootcamp, as well as a number of workshops, seminars, and other educational programming that's often done in partnership with other ecosystem partners. We're also pleased to host the monthly House of Genius events before the pandemic, so we're trying to see how we can get those back up and started again. And while I have you, I want to make sure that I invite you to check out our startup toolkit that includes trainings and other material from the last couple of years of Square One Bootcamp and some of the Ignite classes where you can get a peek at some of those tools and resources that are presented. And that's at cetstl.com/toolkit. And now let's go ahead and get started and bring to the virtual stage Erica King of Shorty Mix Gourmet Cookies. Hello, Erica.
Hi, how are you, Gabriela?
I'm excited to see you and to hear from you. But before we do that, let me share with you guys a little bit about Erica. Erica knows the pleasure of traveling to new places and indulging in unique experiences. And in 2019, she started her company, Shorty Mix Gourmet Cookies, aiming to capture these cultures in a cookie. After discovering a cookbook that her grandmother left her and quitting her job, she began to manufacture boldly flavored grown up cookies in her home that allowed customers anywhere to discover the world in a bite. With the help of St. Louis startup incubator programs like Square One Bootcamp and the Bossa Foundation, Erica learned entrepreneurial skills to operate her business. She graduated from her home and partnered with STL Foodworks, which is an incubator kitchen that has helped her to introduce her delicious and decadent cookies to the community. You can find Erica engaging with her customers on Instagram and Facebook at Shorty Mix Cookies and also interacting on her online store. She does ship her cookies throughout the United States, and recently she started at Tara Grove. So I can't wait to hear about all that.
Yes. I did. So recently I started at the Tower Grove Farmers Market, which is now in its summer season. And, you have to be diligent about things that you really want to do because it is a sort of competitive market to be a part of. And last year I actually wanted to join, but I was not able to get in. Thankfully, I was able to get in and join this year. And it's been amazing so far. It has rained every Saturday thus far, as well as been very cold with little sun. So I've had my work cut out for me, but it showed me, the distance I'm willing to go to make my dream come true. But people still show up. They still come out to the market, and I've been able to extend my reach and awareness on my company through Tower Grove and through all the people that come and enjoy the cookies and follow me and comment on my social media. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's amazing to hear. And I know that you've had a great journey, I would say, because you've learned from all the things that you've um, encountered, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So can you share a little bit about your progression in your business and how some of the entrepreneur resource organizations or other entities that you reached out were able to help you?
Yes. I have to share that I was one of those people who, had a few talents and just wasn't sure what I wanted to focus in on. It took a while for me to give myself a yes to trying various things, and also being okay with not knowing for sure what it was I wanted to do. So I remember I started as early as 2016, finally taking my first retail restaurant job at Chipotle. And I worked there for a month, and it's experience that I still use to this day. But in 2014, I was living in Chicago, Illinois, and I knew that I was going to be leaving Chicago after living there for 10 years. And I was eating one of my all-time favorite gourmet popcorn, which is Garrett's popcorn, if you've ever been to Chicago. And they are famous for that cheddar caramel popcorn mix. So it's like a sweet and savory popcorn, which is one of my all-time favorite snacks. And, I couldn't help it but think, start to feel, I'm gonna miss this. I'm gonna miss, being able to be downtown and do all these cool things and have this popcorn. And I tried to think of like how I would be able to get it, at home or wherever I was gonna go. And I couldn't think of anything. And I thought, I love cookies. If this flavor was in a cookie, this will be amazing. And literally that was the spark of the idea. Now, the friend I was with at the time, she looked at me like I was crazy, and she was like, I don't know if that's gonna work. But when I decided to go home in 2016 and return to St. Louis, trying to figure out my next move, I found my hands cooking, and I found my grandmother's cookbook. And, I thought about the 30 plus years that she worked at St. Louis Lambert International Airport, fixing flight meals. I thought about all the time she scraped the change and whatever out of her purse for me to travel around the world, and, my study abroad experiences and all these places I've been to. And, I literally just started working on this cookie recipe. And life happened, of course, but 2019, I found myself in the same boat. And I said, let's just see where this will lead. And so I started baking the cookies, and I started going to my neighbors' houses and knocking on doors and becoming the cookie lady in the community. And I got so much good feedback. And so I said, maybe I have something here. And I kept with it. And when I did quit my job and saved what I thought was enough money, but turned out not to be nearly enough money, I just kept going with it, and I joined Square One, the CIC at CET, the boot camp. And it was amazing because they plugged me right into manufacturers, consumer manufactured packaged goods. They plugged me into different restaurant owners and food owners and all these amazing resources right here in St. Louis. And it made me see myself staying here, because that was another thing, I wasn't sure if I was gonna stay in St. Louis, but programs like these really helped me see the vision and connected me and plugged me in to let me know that there was opportunity here for me. And I went on to participate in Balsa and a number of different programs that really, again, connected me to other entrepreneurs that I was able to leverage and use as support as I decided to continue with my venture and really commit to what I was doing. So it's been a blast, and things have been going really well.
Perfect. So now let's get to that business plan question. How did your plan evolve? Did you put one down? At what point did you commit to it? How has it changed? And why do you think it's important that we have one?
Oh, goodness. So the business plan is really important for visioning. It really helps you really see. I think for me, I was constantly sort of fuzzy brain about what I wanted to do with this and where this was going to lead me. And everyone is going to ask you, well, what's your vision? What's your, what's this, what's that? And as you continue to be a part of programs like these through Venture Cafe and the others, you will get that question a lot. And, definitely don't be embarrassed. Don't be afraid to not know. It's good that you don't know, because now as people start to ask you those questions, light bulbs start to go off and make you think like, wow, I haven't thought about that. And wow, what would that really look like? So for me, the vision, or really was the business plan was giving me vision for my business. And it helped me with researching, knowing what questions to ask, It helped me, create my avatar, knowing what my customer really looks like. It helped me do so many things in terms of preparing. Well, one, being able to be prepared to answer the questions that I would get from various folks within the industry and all of my customers, all the way down to just those internal questions about, if I was really passionate about what I was doing, and if I could see myself doing this long term, and then what does that look like? And then what does it take for me to get to that next level of what those things look like? So the business plan, literally, like you said, it's a roadmap, it's vision for where you see yourself, and asking those hard questions.
Great. And I have a question in the chat about, can you share your experience on how you incorporated the financial aspect in your business plan, which is a big piece to, can I see myself doing this, and what do I need to do to get there?
Absolutely. I remember going to my accountant, asking them all the questions that they really were not qualified to answer because I figured, money, right? Help me, tell me what to do. And the financial part is crucial. It's crucial to the success of your business, because after you get past all of that qualitative data, all of that all the things that are fun and interesting and creative, because that was really important to me, being able to do something that gave me a strong creative outlet. Well, that quantitative data, the money, the finances, then allows this to be, gives it the foundation, it gives it the sustainability. So for me, that meant those tedious tasks that I didn't like to do. That meant going back to the math board. For me, that's writing down, measurements. That's figuring out what the cost is per, for my flour, for my salt, for my sugar. That's, how much inventory to have on hand, how many, it really is knowing all of your numbers down to the nitty gritty, so that when you are, applying, like Gabriela talked about before, when you're looking to scale, for one, when you're looking to get investments, when you're looking to work with banks and things like that, what your hard numbers look like. So as well as with your sales, when you start selling, knowing what those numbers look like, because as you grow, again, I know one of the things that has come up a number of times is, one, growing too fast and growing too slow. You want to kind of be right there in the middle, where you're able to sustain where you are and slowly increase that. Because if you do grow too fast, for me, for example, if I have too many sales, I don't have enough inventory. It's only me right now. I'm the main employee. There are so many different factors that could really hurt my business right from the beginning. And your reputation is also something that you want to keep intact from the beginning. So for me, it really was doing those tedious tasks of planning, writing down all my figures, keeping my books, again, working with other professionals like the accountants, and building. One of the things I learned too was building a relationship with the bank even before you need them. Find a representative at a bank that you can start to have those conversations with, and that they can start to put things in your mind that maybe you haven't thought about. That's been important for me, and it's something that I've sought out as well. So yeah, the financials really is the foundation for all your fun stuff.
Thank you, Erica. We're going to come back to you. So let's welcome to the stage Miss Fear Conqueror herself, Darcella Craven. Darcella, thank you for being here with us.
Hello, hello.
Awesome.
I just want to say I appreciate that very last sentence that you just said about the foundations for the fun stuff. You could just keep replaying that over and over.
Yeah, right. So when Tyler writes it up, that's going to be one of the nuggets of
yeah.
this conversation. And I know that you have a wealth of knowledge as well. So let me just first introduce you, Darcella. For anybody that does not know you, Darcella has over 25 years of experience in corporate, government, nonprofit, and military organizations. She is currently the president and chief fear conqueror of VetBiz, and I love that title. a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to assisting honorably discharged veterans, National Guard, and reservists transitioning military and their families with starting and expanding businesses. If you've ever seen Darcella, it was probably because she was featured in one of numerous articles for her transition from the welfare system to being an accomplished businesswoman. She specializes in program implementation, change management, and creating group training programs. She's a requested speaker on business development, entrepreneurship, life management, human capital, and nonprofit management, and is actively involved in many civic organizations. An Army veteran herself, Darcella holds a master's in management from Webster University, and she is currently pursuing her doctor's of management. I didn't realize that. And she is very proud mother of 2 daughters who have graduated from college and are now off her payroll, which is something I'm aspiring to do. So welcome,
That's the best
Darcella. I
part.
am so excited to have you here. I know that you do a lot of this work, so I'll just have you lead us into it. And then if I have any questions or if the audience has any questions, we can talk to you and Erica about that.
So I think I really appreciated hearing Erica speak, because you were hitting all the points that are absolutely important for anyone who's going to start a small business. It's almost like you paid attention to any of the resource partners that you were connected to, and you keep going back to them. That's awesome. Because I think you have started your business on some fundamentals that will continue to help you build as you grow, especially knowing when it's time to grow and when it's time to hold. I mean, I think, yeah, that's just spot on. I think you could just, again, keep playing that section over and over again. And it's right, because that's the answer, right? Expert entrepreneurs don't always know exactly what they're going to do. The first question they ask themselves is what you ask yourself, Erica, which is, who am I? What do I know? Who do I know? And it's absolutely okay to have lots of things in those components so that you can then narrow it down to the thing that you want to do, the fun stuff, right? And I think also Gabriela, you and I have talked many, many times about what's the kind of the 1 or 2 biggest things that I see over the years from entrepreneurs that just really screws them all up. And I think one of those things is not having a vision, not being able to define what success means and what the vision of your organization is. Because fundamentally, if you don't even know that, then I can come along and have, if Erica didn't know that, I could convince her she could sell ink pens, right? Because if you don't know your vision, your success space, where you want to end up, I can come along and talk you into thinking you're really great at selling anything else. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've seen over the years, that if people would just get that piece, then you don't really need to worry about the thing, the services or the thing, because that'll flow out of you, because you won't be diverted easily, which is what really happens to a lot of entrepreneurs, is they get easily diverted. I want to also just kind of tell you a couple other things that you and I, again, we had talked about kind of what's in the beginning, and you've 2020 was an interesting space, right? 2020, we hope, will not repeat itself. So one of the things I would like to make sure that entrepreneurs know out there is, please do not fall back on believing that there will be all of this grant money running around in 2022, right? It's still going to be hanging out in 2021, but by the time 2022 comes, you better have your stuff together, because it's not going to be there, really, as far as I can tell. I mean, there might be a few programs here and there. So those are kind of the 2 things that I really wanted to make sure that folks got. And Erica, you couldn't have, I mean, I couldn't have scripted that whole conversation better. So that was awesome. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that entrepreneurs know is, there are really 4 things that you're going to do as a small business owner that absolutely have nothing to do with the thing that you do, baking cookies, right? Or fixing cars, or whatever it is. Understanding access to capital, right? As Erica said, what's my money looking like? How funny is it? And where do I get it from? And what am I going to do with it? How am I going to pay it back to people? That kind of thing. understanding the regulatory environment that you are in, that is something that small business owners do not consider. All of the laws that can impact you as a small business owner. And by the way, you'll spend probably about 4 hours of your day just figuring out that component, which is not something that most people even consider. 80% of small business owners in a recent survey with the SBA indicated that they are the person actually doing that work. So can you imagine if you're this amazing cookie owner suddenly having to understand legislation, right? So having a good team is pivotal, is the most important thing you can do as a small business owner. The other two things are understanding the workforce and when you will hire someone else. So it's not just you cooking, making the cookies. And on top of that, understanding the workforce, how do you train? So like if Erica hires me and I'm really great at slapping stuff together and following her recipes, is there a secret sauce? Is there a secret way to know when the dough should be rising, how long it should stay in? Is there an eyeball? I don't have any of that. I'm just following the recipe. So Erica has to have policies in place. She has to have a training in place. She has to find someone who cares enough about her cookies to make them make sense. And then the fourth thing you'll be doing is technology, ensuring that the technology that you have is not only up to date for your point of sales to get to your consumer. We're not just talking about your social media, but we're also talking about making sure that your customer information is safe. You know, one of the biggest hacks that happened in this country several years ago with Target wasn't because Target's stuff was messed up. It was a small company that they did some work with that had a back end to their company, to Target. And so the hacker went into the small business and was able to get up into Target. So it wasn't that it was Target's problem. Well, eventually it was, but it was really that small business owner that allowed access. So there are some things like that that people just don't even think about when they're considering their small business. So I'll stop talking, Gabriela, and ask if there's any things you want me to really discuss.
No. I think that those are all amazing because as I think about the components of a business plan, those are things that go in it, but we often don't think about, right?
Right.
One of the pieces is personnel. I'm going to hire 5 people, but we don't go further to say, what do I need those 5 people to do or skills that they need to have? How am I going to pay them? And then the training piece is pivotal. I mean, as a restaurant owner, I think, and you know, my husband and I don't always agree as partners in a business, but he just wants to hire people. And if they've been a server somewhere else, they should be a server here. Like, what's the difference, right? But like I tell him, it's different because maybe they had other requirements or they were more lax in some things that we want to be different on, right? I mean, especially with COVID, I mean, no one has been through a pandemic that I know of before. So they don't know maybe the safety protocols or the sanitizing that needs to be incorporated. And so this is where the training of employees has to be built into the system of your business. So I'm glad that you brought all that up. The other piece I think that we often leave out is the technology, because we don't think through even, I mean, again, my example from the restaurant, we opened a restaurant in 2015 and we didn't think to get a credit card processor, right? We were so busy focused on the tacos and where we're going to get the food and what it looked like and the creative pieces like Erica talked about as far as the menu. And so technology not only started us off on the wrong foot that day, but also was crucial during the pandemic. Because if you were not able to quickly get online or have access to someone that could help you get online, whether it was going completely from in person like we were to, oh, you have to shut down and now you have to figure out a way to sell online, or even just people that maybe are transitioning slowly to e-commerce or, you know, selling their services through training courses online, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Erica is a great example of going to the Tower Grove, you know, the farmer's market, right? I have to tell you, I've gone there before, and when the farmer has told me that they don't take like Google Pay, I'm like, well, I don't have cash. Like, how are we gonna do this? I want those bananas. Or quite frankly, I saw an article the other day where people are going to be able to use their palm print. Like, what? First of all, that's some 1984 stuff I'm not ready for. But but you're talking about a psychology that no matter how much I don't like it, is not going to stop the fact that younger people are going to be like, oh yeah, are you kidding me? I can just pay with my palm print. I'm in. So those are kinds of things. And I think you're absolutely right, particularly for Erica. I think I really like the fact that you're thinking about particularly hiring. Like, you have a certain way that you like your product to look, to smell, to present. And at the very beginning, an entrepreneur has to have employees who are as entrepreneurial as they are, who care about the presentation of their product, or who answer the phone correctly, right? Or who do the social media right. Versus if you're in the growth space, then you really need somebody who cares about process. I'm going to make sure this is done the right way every single time, all the time. But then who creates that process? Well, it's going to be Erica, right?
Yeah. So I love this because you all are hitting on things that I'm facing right now and decisions that I have to make now. You know, when it comes to hiring, I had actually been one. It's great to be able to have kept up with different people in your network. So I have to say I love my friends because they're all different types of professionals, right? I have a friend in HR, and I have a friend, you know, that's an accountant. And so it's been nice to be able to say, hey, I started a business and I think I could use you now. So talk about keeping up with, you know, folks that are in school with you and people that you've worked with over the years, and following their careers and knowing, you know, if they're able to help you should you decide to start your own business. So that has been awesome. And so I actually had a friend that I was collaborating with because, you know, my background is in marketing, business, and event planning. I do not have a retail, food service, restaurant background. So there were different things like I did, like working at Chipotle for a month. And even before the pandemic, I was a manager at a cafe for 3 months. And those little 3 months actually helped me learn a lot before the pandemic shut us down. So it's been different things like that that I've been able to do to learn, you know, what does customer service look like, you know, with a food business, you know, because I wasn't that kid that was in high school working at, you know, the bakery up the street. So I had a friend that was collaborating with me on some different things with my business, and she had a food service background, and I brought her in to work with me in the bakery, and I soon learned that while she was really good working with me on other collaborative things, she was not the right fit for me in the baking process. You know, I was looking for someone who worked at a particular level, more like me. Like Darcella said, I was looking for someone who was passionate, who cared about the product, who cared about the process, and even just someone, not to say that she wasn't, but, you know, even I was saying this to my friend the other day, I just want somebody who's happy with their life right now and who's happy with themselves. You know, that's important. You know, people are at different places in their lives. And so, you know, those are things that you really do have to think about. And you have to go into your policies. You have to write that in, and you have to be intentional about that. So now I know that I'm actually looking to hire someone who maybe doesn't necessarily have the skill, but have the passion, because I can teach them the skill. But the passion piece is really important to this startup level that I'm at. And I could go on and on and on, even about some of the other things that was said, but I don't want to take too much more of the time in case there are questions.
You're fine. You're fine. The other thing I was going to ask you both, actually, Darcella, you from having worked with entrepreneurs, what are some mistakes or lessons learned that you think that the business plan could help avoid for entrepreneurs?
Whew. Okay. So there's lots of components to a business plan, but there are some major components that you need to pay attention to. And the things that I think that people skip over outside of the money, right? Nobody ever wants to talk about the money. They're just like, give me $50,000. I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to pay it back or when I'm going to pay it back or what interest rate I want, none of that stuff. Just give me the money. So outside of not, and quite frankly, I think Erica said it, not understanding your money, like where's it coming from? How are you going to have enough product on hand? You know, all of those things impacts your dollar. But I think it's also, people don't use their two eyes, their two ears, and their one mouth appropriately, right? They spend so much time talking about the stuff that they're not paying attention to what the market is really telling you they want. The market is explaining to you what it needs. And if you would just look, listen, and be quiet, you would actually hear them tell you what's the next type of cookie. Or to Erica's point, all the other things that she was really good at doing, once she stopped and started listening to what people around her were saying, she was like, oh, I can feel that. I can do that. And that's the thing I want to do. So I think one of the most important things is they just don't just stop and listen. They're so hell-bent on being like Steve Jobs. Like Steve Jobs was like, I know you don't need a iPad, but I'm gonna force it in. I'm gonna create the demand. There are very few people who can create a demand for a thing. First of all, that's hard to do, and it takes a lot of money, and you need to have a personality like a Steve Jobs. However, the market is out there that you may have the skill sets to fill. So 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them appropriately. That would probably be the thing that's the biggest component of that. And then being honest and truthful. 2 more things, being honest and truthful. Your family loves you, even if you get into a fight on Thanksgiving. They all love your cookies. Oh, this is just the best cookie ever, Erica. I love it. Yum, yum, yum. Make sure there are more than just your family members who actually want to eat it. So being truthful and honest, and being okay with that someone might tell you, no, I don't like that cookie. It's okay. Might not be for them. Maybe you're still going to cook that cookie, but you have to find a different market for it, that kind of thing. Or maybe it goes in the back shelf for a little while. And then the other thing I think is not opening up your mouth to tell people what you want to do. So many people I have heard over 25 years, I can't tell you my idea because you might take it. So let me tell you something. I already know all the people. I already know how to get all the money. And I already know all of the folks that I need to do to make your idea work. The reason why I don't do it is because I don't care about your idea. I don't have the passion behind it. I love eating a cookie, but I don't want to cook a cookie. So, and it's the same way. I love your restaurant. I love all the food in the restaurant. I don't even want to cook in my own house. So I'm not going to come take your idea. And I think the thing is people, they believe that someone is going to take their idea. And here's what I tell folks all the time. There are already people out there who can do your idea. If they wanted to, they would. So just open up your mouth. You'd be surprised at somebody who might say, you know, I don't really care about doing it myself, but I love your idea and I'm willing to invest in you.
Yeah, that totally hits the mark. And I totally agree with you. I know at Basel Foundation, we often get the question, well, such and such also does what I do. I don't know if I want to be in that class, without realizing that by being in the class, you're going to learn from their mistakes and their wins, but then you also get to teach something, right? And like you mentioned, Darcella, there's almost everything that's pretty much been invented. There's a version of it somewhere else already. And so someone's already making money off of your idea, but no one will do what you're doing because you're bringing your life experiences and your culture and your own passion to it. So I was going to ask you the same thing, Erica. What are some maybe ways that your business plan has changed or lessons that you've learned that you could share with other entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. You know, I think one, I will say the business model canvas was something that we worked on in these courses and in these programs that I participated in. And one of the goals was to use them to stress test, you know, because it gets your mind working. And really the goal behind it is to stress test for free. Because who wants to spend a bunch of money and find out later on that that money was not well spent? So one of the ways that you really can avoid some of those mistakes is as black and white as the piece of paper may be and boring as that may seem, it really can help you and add value in the end and save you money in the end when it comes to sort of figuring out or thinking through those challenges. Because a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you're so caught up in your idea and you think it's solid, you think it's great, you think it's a winner, just because it's the best one that you've thought of yet. All the while, there's so many holes and so many things that you hadn't thought about, that you hadn't researched, that you hadn't, stress test, and, only to find that there are holes in it. Doesn't mean it isn't a good idea. It just means that, maybe you have to pivot and maybe you have to do some things differently. And so I think that's what I've learned because, so many people said, well, you picked the best time to start your business because now you survived the pandemic, so that means you can survive anything moving into the future with a business. And in a way, that's a unique way to look at things because what business owner really prepares or plans for something like a pandemic? No one really anticipates that, but you find yourself in the middle of that, becoming a true problem solver, becoming a true leader of your industry and an expert on what it is that you have to do to survive something like a pandemic that affects all the businesses. It really tests your gumption, around if you're in this to win this, because, a lot of times I would say, well, Sub-Zero is closing and Delmar Loop, how could I compete if they're closing? This business that's been here for years, they're closing and they're going down, in the middle of this, why should I think that I can survive this? But really, it does goes back again to those fundamentals, having a team, having support, using technology, pivoting your ideas, researching the market and seeing what the market really wants. There's so many people that got creative and found new businesses in the midst of the pandemic or pivoted their businesses and used that as well. So I know for me personally, I wasn't even a full year in my business when I said, it's time to go online. Let's forget this brick and mortar thing or this cafe thing or doing any of this other stuff and just focus on being online because everyone's ordering online. Everyone's gonna order online. And that's the way I should be going. And so I know that once I committed and focused on online sales, I saw a difference right away, as opposed to trying to network and find my way into doors and different stores and things like that. And so then I was able to put that on the back burner and allow that to come around, now and being in things like a farmer's market. So that's one example of how you have to just think quickly and work through what's right in front of you.
Awesome. I love that I feel like you could almost be one of the service organizations at this point because you've gone through, you're actually learning, right? Sometimes I think too, as business owners, we think we know everything, like Darcella said, and we think we should be teaching the class because we've already figured stuff out, but it really does make a difference for you to think through and for the vision that comes from the business plan. So we've talked a lot about some intangibles, I think, that come from the business plan. And I don't think that oftentimes people think about it. They're more dreading the sitting down and writing the X number of pages. But really, it's so important because you're ironing out the kinks along the way. And you're not going to get everything right? So you understand that this is where I think I want to be. And then as you're starting to test things out and actually doing them, you're going to adjust the plan. And how you adjust affects not just what you do in the business, but the financial pieces of it. And so what about any recommendations from either you, Darcella, or Erica on how can people better leverage their business plan specifically for access to capital?
So I'm going to say you're absolutely right. There's you're going to get me started on the in it versus the on it portions of small business. But I think one of the things that I see a lot, just to your point that you spoke about, was mindset. Anyone who goes at having to write, first of all, anyone that goes at writing a business plan as with a mindset of I have to do this, might as well just not, because you already have a very negative mindset about it. And if you have a negative mindset about it, you will procrastinate, you will do all kinds of other things, because adults do not like to be told what they have to do by anybody, even themselves. So rethink the way you think about things. And instead of saying, I have to write this component, the better way of thinking about that is, I am doing the things necessary in order to get where I want. And where I want is here, which is why that vision is so important. And in order to get there, I need to do these things. So it's need to rather than have to. But when you change your mindset, right, a lot of things start to happening. First of all, your negativity goes away, positivity comes, and people who want to help you come towards you. It is no mistake that when you are in the whole, I hate this thing mindset, people walk away. They're like, oh, we're gonna walk over here. I'm sure them cookies is good. And walk away. But it's when you see Erica, you hear how she talks about her cookies. Even if you don't like cookies, you're like, I know people who like cookies. I'm gonna buy some cookies to pass them on to someone else. It's about attracting people to you. You attract the right people to you, I promise you everything else will come. Money will come, customers come, everything else will come. But back to your point about the financial piece of it, I really think that when you start putting, because it can't all be just about fun and stuff, right? Yeah, there needs to be a piece in there that talks about how will you now achieve the goals. If your goal was to give back to your children's school, or send your kids through college, or retire at 40, what do you need to do in order to make those things happen? That's where the financial pieces of it come in. I did put something in the chat that we call the bail-it team, and that's having your banker, your attorney, your insurance agent, your lawyer, your infrastructure person, and your technology person all as a part of your team from beginning until whenever you decide you no longer want to do this. Because the thing that I see the most, Gabriela, is people who get on that island of me, and they're like, I got to do everything on my own. Nobody wants to help me. Everybody hates me, blah, 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 blah. I always tell people when I hear them say those sentences, turn around, you're on the island of me that is very crowded, because all y'all think you're doing it by yourselves, right? So it really is about changing your mindset, I think, ultimately, that then allows you to look at the components of your plan that you don't really like mostly, and then think differently about them, and you'll be surprised at how it just starts flowing.
I love
I
all
would
of that.
also add to that. Oh,
No, go ahead, Eric. I was going to go to you.
Okay. Darcella is so good at this. I'm already like, so when am I going to be scheduling my one-on-one? So I will say that I've been there where she's talking about, and I've been that person on numerous occasions that thought I was on the island by myself, and that said, I don't want to do this business plan. And I think a few of the things that came up for me in regards to Gabriela's question and some of the points that Darcella made is that you really have to think about being a business owner as well as writing your business plan as a marathon as opposed to a sprint. And I think that was probably the most helpful way for me to think about it. And so what that means is it's something that you're developing and working on over time, and that you don't have to have it perfect, or you don't have to even have it completed at the very beginning. It doesn't mean that it has to be full and written out and done and finished and polished before you open your doors or before you set up and start. It's something that you kind of do along the way. I know for me, one of the things I learned very quickly about myself with participating in these programs was that it didn't matter how many of those programs I participated in, and they talked about some of these same concepts. It just wasn't clicking for me. I'm like, I get what you're saying in theory, but I just don't know how that applies for me right now. It wasn't until I started actually doing my business and working in my business that I would go, oh, this is what they meant. Okay, so now I'm actually able to apply those things. I think sometimes, if you're like me, you want to do your due diligence and know it all before you start or before you go and have it figured out and have it ready to go. But sometimes that's just not a realistic way of thinking about it. And again, it's not a sprint. The other thing I would say regarding the tangibles and the financials. One of another thing that helped me be relieved, because right, thinking about my business as something that's a marathon, that's something I'm gonna stick with over time, took a little bit of stress and pressure off of me, as a business owner and as a person, in my own mental capacities. At one point, sometimes you think, I need to be a genius to do this stuff, because this is a lot of stuff. You don't have to be a genius. You just got to take your time and go at your own pace. Go at your own pace. Figure out what your pace is, what things look like for you, and do that. Because the more you try and keep up with other people and, go with the crowd, the more you probably will fold. So I will say, not one of the best things I was told when it comes to the financials is that be sure that you're actually trying to raise capital, or that you need to raise capital, or that you need to go to a bank, or that you need a loan, or that you need all these grants and things like this. I remember so many people were trying to convince me to get the PPP loan and these grants and things. And the reality was just, I didn't qualify for this thing. And, they were like, no, but everybody, you can figure it out. And it was like, I don't need the stress of trying to do this. Instead of putting my energy into trying to make my situation fit this loan or this grant, I actually converted that energy into making money. And I was actually more successful with selling products as opposed to trying to figure out this application and talk to the banks. So bootstrapping is what I decided was really working for me. So know that even though right now, tech and some of these other companies and whatever industries are really able to go in front of a bank and go in front of a pitch competition and win these grants, if that's not you and that's not your story, your situation, that's okay. Find another avenue, find another way of doing things. And so it is researching, and it is also sticking to your own plan and your own story.
Ooh, can we say that whole part again about bootstrapping? I'm just telling you folks, over the years, I've heard people come in and say, I don't want to put any of my own cash into this thing. I want somebody else to give me all the money to start the business because I just have this amazing idea. And my response to them is always, if I give you 100% of the money to start this business, then that company is mine. And if that company is mine, I am not hiring you because you won't even put your own skin in the game to make it work. So I'm going to go find somebody else to actually do what you think is your idea. You must put your own money in the till. So anyway, that's all I had, so I'll be quiet.
No, that was perfect. So we have about 10 minutes left. I want to open it up in case anyone has any questions that they want to ask you. So feel free to unmute yourself, or if you're shy, which I hope you're not, you can put it in the chat and I can ask on your behalf. But Erica and Darcella are amazing leaders in our region and in the community with small business owners that are willing to share their expertise and their own experiences. So take advantage of them while we have them here today.
While we're waiting, I'm just going to also say this also applies to nonprofits. So, folks who think, I'm going to start a nonprofit, I'm going to get a grant and start this thing. You also have to have money in the till in order to pay the people to do the thing that you want to do. There may be funds out there for you as a designation, but by the time you get that designation, somebody who already has a nonprofit is going to come in there and get that money. So, I mean, you've got to be able to convince other people that your idea has enough merit that they'll put some dollars into your thing. And the way that works is if I see that you're putting your skin in the game as well.
Very true. So any questions or any thoughts from the audience about anything to do with what we've shared today? And like I said, I think that when we think about business plans, we think about a concrete X amount of pages, and we don't really realize the scope of the mind that will be used and the envisioning to get to what we actually finally put down on paper.
I just wanted to do another plug for resource partners around town. I think Erica is correct. There are so many people around here that are willing to assist you not only when you're starting, but all through your entire process. Like Erica can reach back to those people and ask them, you know, now I need somebody who can help me grow, or now I need somebody who knows about sales tax, or, you know, or somebody who understands hiring. I mean, you can always use the resource partners. So I want to tell folks, if I can, couple more things. It's a fallacy to believe that successful entrepreneurs just willy-nilly run outside starting up businesses. They're not just running around going, woo, I'm going to start a business today, unless they've got $1 billion and they have nothing else better to do that Monday. Most people who start, like Erica, they manage their risk. They go through a process, a series of things, and they say, okay, here's the one thing that I believe, because I asked, who am I, what do I know, and who do I know? And this is the one thing that I think is going to be there for me. Also leveraging contingencies. So one of the things that Erica said was pivot. So yeah, it's about pivoting and adapting, not just pivoting just for the sake of it, but pivoting and adapting to a situation, to the market, and responding to what the market is telling you. So if Erica creates a cookie that everybody's like, that is the coolest cookie ever and it looks beautiful, I'm not eating it, right? Because it's nasty, right? I don't like anise. That's just my personal thing, right? But if an entire market says that, then no matter how much she loves that cookie, unless she's gonna make them for herself and force her family to eat them, she's gonna need to adapt. And then finally, finding partnerships and then making a move. The reason why I'm called Cheer, Fear, Conquer is because I find that most people get stuck in that space where they're just thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, and they never actually move. And you do need a few people in your team who are going to go, okay, we've done enough analysis, let's move.
I want to answer the question about, you know, how much skin in the game do you need to convince others that your idea is worthy? I would say, one, the idea around putting skin in the game is not to convince anybody but yourself. Okay, you don't really need to convince others of your idea, because if you're starting a business to convince somebody else to believe in it, then you're doing it backwards, or you're doing it wrong. Really is to convince yourself that this is worth it, that this is something I'm passionate about, this is something I'm willing to stick with, that I'm willing to give my everything. And honestly, for me, and I wouldn't recommend it, having a budget and balance and all that stuff in the beginning is 1,000% better than what I did. But I was convinced that this was it for me. And it was one of those situations where it was like, this has to be it. And so I was giving my everything, my last, my whatever I had to this business to make it successful. And like as I said, while I don't recommend doing that, to some degree, it's kind of that's what your mindset has to be when it comes to the success of the business, that you're going to do whatever it takes. And so really, when it comes to thinking about how much skin in the game you need enough skin in the game to give you presence, to give you some authority, to give you some decision making, to give you some of those things. Because when people see you present, that your business is present, that it's something that they can rely on, depend on, that they can do business with, then that's enough to convince other people that it's worthy, because they see you present doing business in the community. They see you operating as a leader, as an entrepreneur. And so, so really, that's really the amount. And so you determine what that number is. You determine what that number is, so that you can meet the goals that you set out for yourself. And I hope that helps.
Yeah, I would also say that when we talk about you figure out the number, it's not just your cash investment, it's your time, right? So skin in the game does not have to be always capital or cash. It could be your time, your talents, because a lot goes into being a business owner. And if you guys haven't read the book, The E-Myth, that was one of the books that really totally explained it to me on why so many times we think we have the best cookie recipe or the best taco, but we just can't do it. And it really boils down to that I can make a taco, but I have no knowledge about marketing, about finance, about promoting my business, about costing, about using the products that I want to use, or, you know, the resources or the network to get that product at the best price. And so that's where, like Darcella said, to use your resources to speak to the world what you're trying to do, because more people are trying to help you than hurt you normally. And so when they hear about what you're trying to do, they automatically connect you to a opportunity that they're seeing for you that maybe you didn't know about. In fact, we just met with Erica earlier today, and we happened to be at a hotel, and she's looking for a venue. So we're like, oh, well, why don't you have it right here? Right? Like, had she not mentioned that she was looking to do an event, we would have never thought to recommend it to her. And so I do think it's really important to be boisterous about your idea, to share it. Because if you're not passionate about your own idea, how are we expecting other people to invest in our business or in our idea? And
Yeah.
we're coming up on time. I didn't get any questions, but this has been an amazing conversation. I am so grateful to both of you. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Darcella, for sharing your experiences and insights. It was a great conversation, as I said, and I hope that all of the entrepreneurs that are here, or aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners, are able to put some of these thoughts into their practice and into their business planning. Anything else, Darcella or Erica, that you want to leave us with as your parting words, inspiration, or don't do this to our audience?
So I'm going to let Erica have the last word, because I think she is the star of this show as somebody who actually did it. I'm going to tell you what I tell folks all the time is to have a saying that gets you motivated, because there will be days when you question your own sanity. And have a saying that you can look at. Mine is by Nelson Mandela, which is, I never lose, I either win or learn. So that's the one that gets me moving every day. So I would say have a saying that keeps you motivated. And so, Erica?
Fantastic. Darcella, your jewel, as well as you, Gabriela, Ricky, everybody that puts on these, everyone that's involved with this particular event and meeting. I would say I second that. For me, it was really knowing myself and putting in the time to understand who I am as an individual and why it is I'm doing what I do. So spend the time on yourself as well as in your business, because at the end of the day, all you have is yourself and your own time, your own life. And so you might as well enjoy it. You might as well love it. And you might as well do something that you love to do and that you're passionate about. So those are sort of my parting words as well.
Thank you both, ladies. Thank you so much for being with us today, everyone. Don't forget, we did put some resources in the chat, emails and social media. So check that out. And also we have some information for you on the cetstl.com website. We'll look forward to seeing you guys again next month. We're here the fourth Thursday of every month with our series starting from square one. Thank you so much, everybody.